Las Vegas, the gambling capital of the world. But for 20-year-old Alex, a trip to the casinos of Sin City in 1998 would mark the beginning of one of the most infamous gambling computer hacks in history, a scam that would change the entire gaming industry forever.
We were on an all-expenses paid trip doing a software demo. I didn't know anything about gambling. I hadn't even been to Vegas before. We were messing around in a casino hall and my girlfriend was at one of the slot machines. She said, "Aren't those machines based on computers? You guys are into computers. Can't you do something so we can win more?" It was a joke, but we got kind of curious and so started to look into it when we got back home. We realized they were run by computer programs basically. So then we started thinking, was there some way that you could crack these machines?
Using technology to scam slot machines was nothing new, but it had always involved an inside man who could manually open machines to change settings or replace firmware. Alex planned to do something very different.
For us, the challenge was to use the computer skills, which weren't really very good, to do something that nobody had done. Hack remotely into the machines.
Alex had been inspired by the Eudaimonic, the true story of a band of computer experts and physicists who had beaten the roulette tables in the 1980s by inventing a wearable computer that could predict the speed of a roulette wheel and how the ball was spinning.
They won many thousands, but were ultimately let down by cumbersome technology. Technology had moved on now. Many of the games and casinos were now computer-based.
But to work out exactly how these slot machine computers worked, Alex had to get his hands on one. They paid $1,500 for their machine, but when he opened it up, Alex got another surprise.
It turned out they had used a really basic chip, similar to the type you'd find on an old Atari computer. It was an 8-bit chip with 64K memory space. Tiny.
With this realization, Alex knew that whatever the computer code running the game was, it had to be a very simple one.
The computer code we downloaded from the chip was a really simple binary one. We figured out how numbers in the code turn into cards on the machine. So we basically got a design overview of how the code deals with cards.
But the key to Alex cracking the code and the thing that made the whole scam possible lay in a fatal flaw in the computer's supposed random number generator.
The numbers produced were not really random, but rather sequential numbers that rotated. The machines have to provide predictable sequences. If it's truly random, they can't see the odds. They can't verify what the odds really are. All we had to do was to write a program which copied the one in the slot machine we had. One of us would then simply see what card showed up on the last play of the machine and then feed that data into our own computer program back at home, which would identify that sequence of cards. Our algorithm would then be able to calculate how many plays there would be before the next big card sequence. It might be 500 plays away, or it might be 5. We were pretty excited mainly because we were smarter than the machine and could beat it.
Alex had worked out a way of hacking the casino machines that seemed foolproof. But would it work? It was time to play for real.
So I would scout a casino and pick one out that had a video poker machine. I needed to know very precisely the exact cycle time of the machine in order to feed back the correct data. Initially we used a video camera stuffed into a shoulder bag. I positioned the bag so that the camera lens is pointing at the screen. I'd then run the camera for a while. I would then phone the machine timing data back to Larry, who would enter it into the home-based computer and run the program. Based on this data, the computer would predict the time till the next big win. I I would use a stopwatch timer to time the exact time between these two cue tones. I'd then go back to the machine, start the timer, and on a beat, I'd hit play on the machine. First time I think I won $35,000.
Within a week, Alex and his crew had notched up winnings of $300,000. After 2 months, that total had reached over $1 million. But with the high stakes came high risk, and it wasn't long before Sin City's eye in the sky was watching.
They found the computer in the pocket, and that was me busted. They questioned me for hours, took my mugshot, confiscated the computer, took my winnings, and eventually let me go with a proviso that if I was ever seen again in any casino, it would be curtains. I later learned that casinos generally don't prosecute attacks like ours, as they don't want to publicize that they have these vulnerabilities.
The $1 million casino hack might have started as an intellectual challenge, but the legacy it left in its wake was huge.